Of all the horrors that populate the world of The Walking Dead, the shambling corpses, the tyrannical warlords, the sheer visceral gore, some of the most chilling moments are those that unfold in silence, born not from frenzy but from cold, calculated decision. These are the choices that carve out the soul of a character and redefine the moral landscape of the story. Perhaps no single act embodies this quiet brutality more than Carol Pelletier's secret execution of two sick survivors, Karen and David, during the prison flu outbreak in Season 4. This is not a scene of grand spectacle. It is a grim, solitary transaction where life is weighed against the greater good and found wanting. To witness it is to understand that the true apocalypse is not just the end of civilization, but the slow, painful erosion of the principles that once held it together. Carol's action, carried out in shadow and concluded with the crackle of fire, serves as a devastating turning point, not only for her character but for the entire group's understanding of what it means to survive. It marks the final, irrevocable death of the woman she once was and the brutal, necessary birth of the pragmatist she is forced to become, forcing us to ask one of the story's most persistent questions. In a world that rewards monstrosity, can one make monstrous choices without becoming a monster? To fully grasp the weight of Carol's decision, we must first trace the arduous journey of the woman who made it. The Carol we meet at the beginning of the story is a ghost, a woman hollowed out by years of domestic abuse. She is timid, soft-spoken, and almost invisible, her posture perpetually curled in on itself as if expecting a blow. This was a woman whose survival strategy was submission, whose world was defined by the whims of a violent man. The apocalypse, ironically, did not immediately liberate her. It simply replaced one threat with a multitude of others. The true crucible that began her transformation was the agonizing loss of her daughter, Sophia. The days-long search, the desperate hope, and the ultimate soul-shattering revelation that her little girl was not lost but turned, emerging from Herschel's barn as a walker, shattered the last remnants of her fragile former self. That moment did not break her, it annealed her. The soft, vulnerable core of her being was sealed away under a layer of hardened steel. She began to learn to adapt. She practiced with weapons, she learned to fight, and she started to understand that in this new world, passivity was a death sentence. This evolution was gradual but unmistakable. We see her teaching the children at the prison how to use knives, a lesson not in aggression but in grim necessity. She becomes a capable if quiet pillar of the community. But beneath this capable exterior, a profound philosophical shift was taking place. The world, through its relentless brutality, was teaching Carol a singular, harsh lesson. Sentimentality is a luxury that gets people killed. Grief, while unavoidable, is a burden that must be carried quickly and quietly. And most importantly, the well-being of the whole must at times be prioritized over the life of the individual, no matter how painful that calculus may be. By the time the flu virus begins to sweep through the prison, this philosophy has fully crystallized within her. The sickness is the perfect enemy for this new Carol. It is invisible, insidious, and utterly indifferent to pleas for mercy. It does not fight with claws or teeth. It spreads on a breath, threatening to consume the community from the inside. While others see sick friends and allies, Carol sees a ticking time bomb. She sees a vector, a point of contagion that, if left unchecked, will annihilate everyone she has fought to protect, especially the children she has come to see as her own. This perspective is not born of coldness, but of a terrifyingly clear-eyed view of their predicament. The old world's tools, medicine, quarantine, hope, are proving inadequate. A new, more brutal tool is required. This sets the stage for the act itself, a moment that is as clinically horrifying as it is logically sound within her new worldview. Carol does not hunt Karen and David in a rage. There is no passion to it. She simply takes a weapon, walks to the isolated area where they are quarantined, kills them, drags their bodies outside, and sets them ablaze. The aftermath is telling. We see her not triumphant but shaken, her face a mask of grim resolution and profound trauma. Her hands are physically clean, but the stain on her soul is immediate and permanent. This is the essence of her newfound ruthlessness. It is not a descent into sadism or a love of violence. It is, rather, a willingness to personally bear the weight of a monstrous action because she believes it is the only way to save the larger group. It is a form of extreme, self-sacrificial pragmatism. She makes herself the villain in the eyes of her community and, more importantly, in her own eyes, to give that community a chance at a future. She is performing a twisted version of a mercy killing, but the mercy is not for the sufferers, it is for the potential survivors. She is creating a firebreak, and the fuel for that fire is her own humanity. She operates in secret because she knows the others, still clinging to the ghost of a dead world's ethics, would never agree. She believes that the burden of this knowledge and the damnation that comes with it is hers alone to carry. The true consequence of Carol's choice, however, is not measured in the lives of Karen and David, but in the shockwave it sends through the community when Rick uncovers the truth. His discovery is a moment of profound rupture. Rick Grimes, the former sheriff, is the embodiment of the group's struggling conscience. He has been forced to make terrible choices himself, but they have always been in the heat of battle, against clear and present threats like Shane, the governor, or a horde of walkers. Carol's act is different. It is premeditated. It is the killing of their own in a moment of relative calm under the guise of prevention. Rick's horror is visceral. It is the horror of realizing that the enemy is not outside the walls but has been living inside them, sleeping beside them, and making decisions that challenge the very foundation of their society. His confrontation with Carol is not just an interrogation, it is a moral trial. In that moment, he is not just a leader judging a subordinate, but a representative of one philosophy of survival clashing with another. Rick's perspective is rooted in the idea that for the group to be worth saving, it must remain fundamentally human. To him, humanity is defined by its rules, its prohibitions, its refusal to sacrifice its own for mere convenience or even strategic advantage. From this viewpoint, Carol's action is a primal betrayal. It shatters the trust that binds them together. If they cannot trust each other with their lives, especially when they are at their most vulnerable, then they are no longer a community. They are just a collection of individuals waiting to turn on one another. Rick's decision to banish Carol is therefore one of the most significant and principled stands he ever takes. It is his way of drawing a bright, red line. He is declaring, loudly and clearly, that some actions are so corrosive to the idea of community that they cannot be tolerated, regardless of the intent behind them. To allow Carol to stay in his mind would be to endorse her logic, to accept that killing your own is a valid tool in their arsenal. That is a threshold he is not willing to cross, for to cross it would mean they have truly lost themselves. Carol, for her part, defends her actions with a calm, devastating logic that highlights the irreconcilable difference between their positions. She doesn't plead for forgiveness or claim she enjoyed it. She simply states that she did what she did to save lives, to stop the sickness from spreading. She points out the obvious truth that everyone was thinking but no one was willing to act upon: Karen and David were already dead. Her act was just speeding up the inevitable and, in her view, protecting the rest. This is the cold, hard math of survival, stripped of all emotion. Her banishment is the price she pays for being right in a practical sense but wrong in a moral one. It is the punishment for being the one who was willing to look directly into the abyss of their situation and act, while others averted their eyes. The ramifications of this event ripple outward, shaping the characters and the narrative for seasons to come. For Carol, banishment is not an end but a further transformation. Cast out from the group she sacrificed her soul to protect, she is forced to rely entirely on the hardness she has cultivated. She becomes a ghost, a lone wolf capable of astonishing feats of violence and cunning, as seen when she single-handedly takes down Terminus. The woman who killed 2 people in secret now annihilates a compound of cannibals with cold efficiency. The seed planted with Karen and David has fully bloomed into a deadly flower. Yet the tragedy of Carol is that this hardness is not her nature, it is her armor. And armor is heavy. We see the immense toll this persona takes on her in later seasons as she struggles with guilt, PTSD, and a deep yearning for the gentleness she had to destroy within herself. She becomes a living contradiction, the group's most fearsome protector who is also its most broken soul. For Rick, the event serves as a harsh lesson in the complexities of leadership. While he banishes Carol to uphold a principle, he soon finds the world constantly testing that principle. He, too, will later be forced to make brutally pragmatic choices, such as his murder of the surrendering saviors at the outpost. The line he so clearly drew with Carol becomes increasingly blurred, suggesting that her philosophy, however disturbing, may not be entirely wrong, but merely an extreme point on a spectrum of survival that he himself is traveling. The event with Carol becomes a benchmark against which he measures his own descent into necessary violence, a haunting memory of the moment he chose principle over pragmatism, leaving him to wonder if in the long run there is even a difference.